proclamation for National Principals Month. I'd like to draw your attention to the screen here. It's a very special month for October. It is it's a month that's recognized by these national organizations, National Association of Secondary School Principals, Elementary School Principals, and the American Federation for School Administrators. Of course, it recognizes the essential role principals play in making schools great. And here in Hoover, we have 17 excellent principals, and I would say many more excellent assistant principals. So let's have all of our school level administrators stand up tonight and recognize them, please. Alabama School Bus Safety Week, that is coming up next week, October 16th through 20th. Of course, we, and I hope every other school system, recognize school safety on transportation throughout the school year. However, for the state purposes, it is that week. One thing to note, specific to Hoover City Schools, our bus inspections consistently rank among the highest in the state of Alabama. We've recognized that at prior school board meetings. We transport upwards of 7,000 students per school day with a staff of 150 approximately, and that includes drivers, mechanics, and other auxiliary personnel in the transportation department. Total annual mileage, I believe this is still correct, more than 1 million miles logged by our school buses, not only throughout the school year, but the calendar year, because you keep in mind the trips, the field trips that take place during holiday breaks. So a big honor for our transportation department, and if our supervisor, Jeremy Bradford, is here, he may be stuck in, right here. Let's give him an applause.
I just want to say this proclamation is from a direct result of the fine staff we have. We have a wonderful group of people out there that's working. Jason's number is correct. It's actually 1.3 million. I figured it up this morning. So we're on tap to travel that many miles, and our safety record is stellar. Thank you.
Alabama Statewide Parent Visitation Month. This is a recognition by the Alabama State Department of Education. Of course, it invites parents to visit schools during the month of October specifically. Of course, we welcome them year-round. This year's theme for Statewide Visitation Month is Home and School Partnerships Equal Student Success. Of course, here in Hoover, we've got HPTC, the Hoover Parent Teacher Council, which mobilizes hundreds of parent volunteers throughout the year and throughout the district. So we appreciate those. I know Shelley Shaw is in here. She's our most recent past president. And Christine Hoffman is probably stuck in traffic. So let's have anybody who is associated with HPTC or a PTO, PTA, PTSO, please stand. We will present this proclamation and get a photo with Casey.
Thank you to all you parents out there who come to so many events at our schools and are here tonight at this BOE meeting. It doesn't go unrecognized how much support we get from parents out there in our Hoover community. So we appreciate that and accept this on behalf of all the parents and PTOs out there.
National School Lunch Week. That was this past week, October 9th through the 13th. It's a national recognition by the School Nutrition Association. The hashtag NSLW17, if you search that on our social media streams and really on any social media stream nationally, you'll see several photos. This year's theme, School Lunches, Recipes for Success. October 11th, specific to Hoover City Schools as well. We had Leaders Serve Day, and I'll indulge you with a few photos here. There's our fearless leader who started at River Chase Elementary School. There she is with the staff. Board President Earl Cooper, Greystone, and Board Member Craig Kelly, Amy Tosney, and Deanna Bauman, and Bumpus Middle School. So we had some props going on at some schools. And of course, We had Mayor Bricado, several city councilors, some people, some dignitaries, their schedules didn't allow them to be in the lunchrooms, but we certainly appreciate the ones who did. And if our Child Nutrition Director, Melinda Bonner, would come up to accept this proclamation, please. And let's give her a hand as well.
I just want to say it was a very exciting day, and I appreciate all of the leaders that came out and put on the chef's hat and the apron and the gloves and served with our staff. They were all excited. And at Rocky Ridge, the cafeteria workers, they put on chef's coats along with Casey Middlebrooks, and the students didn't know who they were. They wanted to know who all these people were, and they said, "It's us, it's us." So thank you again for coming out and supporting child nutrition.
May I make one comment too? I did serve at River Chase, and the politest, kindest students. Thank you, please, may I? Was just so impressed. You know, it's what we expect, it's what we want, but boy, that's really what they were doing. They did scold me a little bit because I kept getting the green bean juice on their rolls. So I don't think I'm going to get that job.
And last among our proclamations, Red Ribbon Week, sponsored by the National Family Partnership, founded in 1980 and will be celebrated this year, October 23rd through the 31st on Halloween. Every Hoover City Schools campus participates to some degree and some capacity in this week, which of course brings awareness to the abuse of drugs and alcohol. Students wear red, sign pledges, hear from peer helpers, and some schools even get to meet Ava, the school police dog. So we really take advantage of that week. Are any of our peer helpers in here?
No.
Okay, and we've got Zach Butler, counselor, who will be accepting this proclamation on behalf of Hoover High School and everyone who participates in this awareness program. Thank you, Zach. Next, about this time of year, we celebrate the National Merit semifinalists from the National Merit Scholarship Corporation program. And if we could call our two college and career specialists to the stage, then they can explain more about this program and celebrate this year's crop of students, beginning with Hoover High School.
Good evening. I don't want to break it. Thank y'all for having us here tonight. What an incredible night to celebrate all of the people that have had a hand in student success. And I'm hearing transportation, I'm hearing cafeteria, our principals and administrators. For our students who we feel like have just topped out on everything that they've done, from standardized testing to involvements across the curriculum and extracurricular, for them to be here on the same night and be able to be recognized on the same night as many of the other adults in their lives that have played a really large role in them being successful and being part of the Hoover community. I think this couldn't have worked out in a better way. So thank you, Mr. Gaston. So yes, we are here tonight to recognize Hoover City School students from Hoover High School and Spain Park High School for the National Merit Scholarship Competition. Tonight we're recognizing students who have been deemed National Merit semifinalists. These students are all in competition to be named National Merit finalists. It took a lot of work to get here, but I think what we like to really emphasize about this group of students is that they're not just test takers. They are, like, before coming here, I sat at my desk and tried to jot down all the things that all of these kids do outside of school. And it included things like Scholars Bowl, math team, debate team, athletic varsity sports, dual enrollment EMT programs, technology, doing everything from game design and programming to blogging. They're AP capstone diploma students, IB diploma students. I mean, honestly, these students are a true reflection of the best of Hoover City Schools. So what we'd like to do is first ask Mr. Hewlin to come forward. I'm going to call the Hoover High School students first. Mr. Hewlin's going to want to shake your hand. We'd like you guys to line up across the front, and then Mr. Prager is going to come forward and announce the Spain Park students and have Mr. Giangrosso shake their hand as well. Once we've called the names of all our students, we'd also like to, at that time, invite all of our parents to stand up so we can recognize your efforts in getting your children to this point as well. So, to begin, I'd like to ask Sydney Biswell, Andy Kong, Rishi Campbell, Austin Blanton, Emily Sue, Ariva Noor, and Connor Flannelly to please come forward. Also at this time, you guys got to see Mr. Butler here for Red Ribbon Week. I'd like to ask him to stand up as well. He's the grade level counselor for the seniors class at Hoover High School, and it's really nice to have him here as well.
It's always hard to follow Cindy because she just sums up everything perfectly with what we think of these students and what we think of all of you parents and families. We appreciate you so much. I always say about, well, all of our kids, but specifically those that are represented here tonight, they just make us look good every day. And we just can't tell you how much we appreciate that as counselors and administrators. We appreciate that. They're a pleasure to work with. I wanted to give some just cold hard stats that are, even though they're cold hard stats, they're just really impressive. At what national merit, becoming a national merit semifinalist actually means and how they do this. They all entered a competition, even though they didn't think of it as entering a competition. I don't think when they took the national merit test, national merit qualifying test, the PSAT, in their 11th grade year, last year. And that contest is made up of about 1.6 million students. So out of 1.6 million students, then they narrow that down to around 50,000. So around, no, actually, I take that back. 50,000 are for the commended students, which, let me interrupt myself and say, our national merit commended students aren't even represented here tonight. So they made that first level 50,000 out of 1.6 million. Out of that, okay, 16,000, so 1%, there, 16,000 students become national merit semifinalists. And this is the number from Hoover City Schools of that 16 million, or 1.6 million, 16,000 of those. These are them. There you go. So them are they. I was never semifinalist myself. That vocabulary section will get you every time. So I'm going to call the Spain Park students to come forward and ask Mr. Giangrosso to congratulate them, shake their hand. And we'll start with E.J. McKinley. E.J. McKinley has just come from cross-country practice. So these are very involved students, not just test takers. Ryan Smith. Woody Shin. Jen Spell. Madison Todd. And Reese Everhart. Now, not represented here is represented right here. Catherine Turnbull and Catherine Voorhees. Not represented is Will Lamb, and one that I'm going to take full credit for is Corey James, who had the audacity to move out of state on us, but she is a product of Hoover City Schools as well, so we want to recognize her. These are our students. Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone. Would our parents please stand, those who are still in the audience, parents of our National Merit semifinalists. Let's welcome them in. Thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your schedule to come to the board tonight. We'll be doing official photographs in the lobby for parents and anyone else. Thank you. Now, we're getting close to rounding out recognitions. If a picture says 1,000 words, you can take a look on the screen right here. Curtis Jarrell Anthony, goes by Jarrell, second grader, 7 years old, Deer Valley Elementary School. If he will make his way to the front, I've already had the pleasure of meeting him and having a photograph made with him in the lobby. He is with his parents, Mr. and Miss Anthony. Thank you for being here tonight. His mom is a PR guru. She wrote a whole press release on Mr. Jarrell. So let me just give you some highlights here. Again, 7-year-old golfer, Hoover native. He represented Deer Valley, Hoover City Schools, Alabama, and the USA in the 2017 U.S. Kids World Golf Championship at Pinehurst this past summer. I think that deserves the first round of applause right there. He's already had a proclamation by the Hoover City Council. He plays on the City of Hoover Flag Football League for the Raiders and averages 3 touchdowns a game. Pretty impressive. He's been featured in a book and performed in the video book of I Have Butterflies in My Tummy, Charlie's First Day at School. So he's a multimedia guru there. He's also voiced a commercial for McDonald's and UAB football for the Children's Harbor Family Center. He's got his own Instagram account, and his teacher is Miss Monica Home. So congratulations to Joe. Before we give him a final round, Joe, any tips on golf? What are your tricks? Chipping. I know nothing about golf. I'm sure that means something to some of you. So, golf prodigy, thank you for showing up tonight. And thank you for representing Hoover City Schools so well. Oh, one more thing. We've got a certificate. I'm sorry.
Jarrell, come here now.
Let's get a photograph real quick. I'll get another photograph in the lobby with Iron City Studios. Got it. Good job. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Miss Nancy McGowan, Shades Mountain Elementary School, formerly of Bluff Park. If she'll make her way up, she is a math coach now at Shades Mountain, was an enrichment teacher at Bluff Park for years, so it's so difficult to make that paradigm shift. We want to present her with the certificate. As you can see up on the screen here, she has been Nat Geo certified. That is, of course, shortening for National Geographic. She's one of 7 educators in the state of Alabama to achieve this certification over the past summer. It was a 3-part, rather intensive process, including took about a year. Included a workshop rooted in National Geographic's learning framework, designed 2 classroom activities drawing upon a teacher's knowledge of that framework, and a capstone video project. So quite an intensive year-long thing to become, again, 1 in 7 in the state of Alabama. So congratulations, Nancy. Miss Kristen Bundren, science teacher, Spain Park High School. Here she is in the back. I had an extensive phone conversation with her this morning about her award in the Presidential Awards for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching, a 2017 state finalist. So congratulations to you. And I hope I didn't give your certificate to someone else. I don't see it up here. Oh, did he? I see. Okay. That's quite different. We'll get that sorted out. So, but it's an intensive process, again, to get to the level that you are, and of course demonstrates excellence in science and or mathematics curriculum. So It's not an award that's just handed out every day of the year. So we talked on the phone this morning, and I mentioned you may want to say a word or two about the process. Or not. Okay, maybe not. Maybe not. Well, congratulations, and we do keep our fingers crossed that you represent us well, as we know you will, the state, and hopefully advance to the national. So congratulations, Kristen. Thank you. And that concludes my portion. Dr. Murphy, I'll turn it over to you for the AASB.
Thank you so much. It's my privilege to acknowledge the terrific work of our board. Our board received recognition at the District 5 meeting the other night. I guess that was last week. School Board Member Academy President's Award going to our board here at Hoover. And this is based on them demonstrating a commitment to excellence in education through their boardmanship training. So, Mr. Cooper, if I might, on behalf of myself to all of our board, present that to you. By the way, Craig Kelly is away this evening on business, and so thank you for accepting that for all of these folks. We do have opportunity also to recognize Deanna Bauman for completion of levels 1 and levels 2 in the Alabama Association of School Boards Member Academy. And if I might get Mr. Cooper to present that to you. And Jill Gaines. I saw Jill. Jill also is receiving a level 2 competition. So if we could present that to you also. If I might also
I got two things we'll do under recognition as well. Dr. Hickman, please stand. Everybody knew between come around and ask a lot of questions. You finally got your book published. Now, I haven't looked at it. You may have said something bad about me, but I'm going to say congratulations and thank you very much for capturing the history behind Hoover City Schools.
Okay, thank you very much.
Now, where can people get this book?
I haven't finalized exactly how I'm going to distribute it. I've made 50 copies to distribute to people who were very active in formation of the system and throughout the years, the 30 years that the school system has been going.
Well, you know, we've got a lot of good things going on in the school district, and it didn't start just yesterday. And for you to be able to capture this like you've done, thank you very much on behalf of the school district and the community.
Thank you. I would like to make, Jason introduced me last time as one of the first board members. I wanted to go on record to show you how well I have aged.
I'm going to recognize that white dress. Thank you again very much. The other thing I want to do is to recognize someone else, our former board member, Your Honor, Jill Gaines Beach, who is here with us in all her glory. She got caught in the traffic. I apologize for being late. There was a Maserati involved in an accident on Acton Road, and so since it was a Maserati, you know I wasn't in the accident. I was around. But we both got caught in it. Jill?
I'm not very good about the one.
We're going to let her do her thing first, and then we'll go with something else.
Santa.
Yes. Not,
All
well,
right.
you're going to think, Santa.
Do we need to rise after you come in the room?
Not yet. Only when you show up in DUI court. Put that live stream on.
Hopefully I'll crawl.
Yeah. Somebody did that to me yesterday. And I'm going to do a timer, lawyer.
We're Brian's our time.
Well, I did that. I guess I'll talk serious first, right? And 2.5 years ago, there was an opening for the school board, and I believe 15 of us put in that year. And I can tell you right before my interview, after I read the policy manual through and through multiple times for other reasons maybe. That day, someone in my house had hired one of those door-to-door roofer groups that roofed my house, punctured a gas line, and my house had a gas leak. The dogs were going nuts, pouring down rain. I was like, I'm gonna go to this interview and I'm just gonna be horrible, off topic, no telling what I'm gonna say. The first question that Gene Smith asked me, out of all the things of anyone, he asked, Jill, why are you applying for the school board? And what I told him is that I have a vested interest in the school system. My vested interest at the time was 13, and I don't even know, he probably was 12 at the time. Now he's 6'2", pushing 6'3", and about to turn 16, and he's my world. And from there, as a partner told me when I was a baby lawyer, and I was nervous, and well, first my trial coach said, if anyone ever stands up in front of people and says they're not nervous, they're a liar or a fool. The other partner, when I had to do my first argument from a judge, he said, don't worry, when you hear the dulcet tones of your voice, things will calm down. And as soon as I had that question, and I was in my comfort zone, because I was talking about my boy and why I cared. Friends asked me if I was having complete mental breakdown for applying for this position. But I didn't. My intentions were there, up here, and I got on the board, and I overwhelmed. Of course, Dr. Murphy and I were rookies starting at the same time, and what happened that first year, Mark Twain is, I love Mark Twain, I use his quotes often. I actually had this more organized and ran off without it. And he did say, whenever you find yourself on the side of majority, it's time to pause and reflect. Sometimes I might have been pausing and reflecting a little bit too much, Dr. Murphy, and I think that she and I think with lawyers, when you go in a courtroom, you have an advocate position, you're on both sides. But when you walk out, those folks are some of your best friends. And you've got to know, you've got to be able to argue both sides. And Kathy and I, we've had our times, but she's my friend. We go to Firebirds at least once a month, and we don't talk about school. One thing I can say about this board that I can tell you everyone's children's names and what they do and who they're about. And you don't have to be a parent to be on the Board of Education. But I tell you what, it tells me a lot about a person when the first thing I know about them is who their children are and what they do. And that tells me where your priorities are and where your heart is. And then with that, everything's going to fall in place. Y'all now are dealing with possibly some discussions here in the future. I can pipe in now on the vocational school. I was up for the tour at Florence last year. It's amazing. Then when I was brought together with the community meetings, I also got a little bit of insight before. There's so many programs, and I'm from Pleasant Grove, which is Allentown of U.S. Steel. So everyone I know's dad went to U.S. Steel. I have one of my dear friends, he's the president of the local labor there, and its skill sets are gone. And I know what people make at Mercedes, because I've seen their paychecks. And I think that the door is opening for a lot of our young people. And I actually know how much they call them stylists or colorists now, by the way, I can tell you how much I pay her. This is no longer natural. I will go, I'm already out of time. Okay, okay, I'll stop. So I think that's incredible. I think it's incredible. I'm as a parent, I'm not going to drop by the wayside, by the way. Plus, I know y'all's business, so I'm going to be in it. And also, I know you're about to embark on with the federal court and the rezoning. And I will say, when I read that policy manual, and one thing, even before I even came for the interview, in the mission statement, it talks about how Hoover embraces diversity. Having a son that was K-5 now through 10th grade, and they know no color. If they learn it, it's not from our administrators, it's not from our faculty, it's not from our aides, it's coming somewhere else. It's not coming from those kids. Because you should see the birthday parties, you should see the friends that we have, all different religions, and I can name every religion. And I've wonderful conversations with their parents. We are unique. I'm proud to be part of the Hoover school system for more than sports, because I am an Alabama fan. I like to win at everything, and so I'm very proud that I can say we are like a diving state champ. I didn't even know we had a dive team. Bowling, of course, football, both schools, basketball, softball, math team, law academy. I'm particularly proud of. There's so many. We are number one, y'all. We are number one, like the University of Alabama. We are number one. No offense to my Auburn friend, kinda. Geox Tigers. Okay, I got a joke for him though, because now he's my enemy for 2 weeks. But I'm very proud. I'm very, and if y'all need a cheerleader. And I am in the Bessemer Division, which is have a lot of our schools, and I'm dealing with adult criminal court, and hopefully our young people will not make it, but if they're 16 and over and charged with a felony, they will be in front of them. I'm still gonna be teaching and presenting about Aaron's Law, if y'all don't know about that. It's, Hoover jumped on the bandwagon before it was a mandated curriculum. We were in our schools teaching about Aaron's Law. Next Mark Twain quote, humor is the great thing. The minute it crops up, all of our hardness yields and all of our intimidations or resentments float away. So with that, prizes. I'll go ahead. Donnie, Coach G, this has nothing to do with you. This is all because he's an LSU fan. Completely. Don Hewlin, corn dogs. If you go down Baton Rouge, you have the smell of corn dogs in the area. He would end up with a random corn dog in his desk. Multiple corn dogs. Yes.
He used to be big on fescue.
Now they're called corn dogs. I have no idea when that happened, but I'm going with it. Tosney. I so wish I got to spend more time with you, because you're hilarious. And I love your husband. He's a berry boy.
Story of my life.
Yes, and sorry. Yeah, I might know his high school girlfriend too.
Awesome.
Yeah. What? This one's not good.
I'm scared.
Here's you some pickled okra and some olives.
Thank you. These are really for Jeff.
I don't know, Miss Bosley. So now, see, she sat by me for 2 years, and I'm 51, and I'm hot all the time. This woman has absolutely no body fat on her, and if I could put like a parka on her, she always wanted to put a heater. But first, I got this. Here to stay awake. And going back to your body fat. Burger King. Whoppers have 2, have 5,000 calories apiece. That will do it. Now, Craig, of course, he's not here tonight, and he
will be watching.
He's a nerd wherever he is. You would think he's a nerd, but he's got the driest sense of humor. And unfortunately, when we started we started live streaming, he will mumble things in my ears. Ah, geez, sorry, y'all. You're gonna pay me. I didn't get paid for 3 years on this. So I'm gonna I mean, my 15-year-old turns off. Okay, I've had a friend ask me, because he gave not that actually dissolves that peppermint. He gave me a hard piece of round peppermint, And I had a friend go, do you have a wad of chew in your mouth at the board meeting? I was like, no, I'm from Pleasant Grove, but I'm not gonna chew tobacco in front of everybody. And he actually takes Nicorette chiclet things, and he said, you want a chiclet? This was in front of everybody. I don't know if you had Nicorette going before, but it's the nastiest thing you'll put in your mouth. And I just had this reaction. And he also mumble things to me. And he is always asking me for peppermint, because I'm like a peppermint person. So Greg, 40 peppermints. Yeah, wherever, I'm gonna put those like right between his mouth.
I'll give it a the year.
Yeah, I'll put those on. But he's also, I not respect Auburn, we like to give each other a hard time, about that. And he's proud of his alma mater, and there's, he and Dr. Murphy wrote recommendations for me to the governor, and I know that meant a lot, and Craig's dad actually introduced her. She introduced Craig's dad into the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame. So I know that the fact that Mr. Kelly and Governor Ivey were so close that getting something from Craig really made a difference. And of course, Kathy, we know you statewide and proud that you're part of our school system. Now, Earl, 2 days here for you.
Drum roll, please.
Drum roll. I don't know if y'all were here last year. This is, you never ask a why question to a trial lawyer. No why. You can use the frame now. Take that out. And this is for, yeah, well, not yet. I don't know. You'll show up in court, I'm sure. This is, when he says executive session is going to take 30 minutes. So this is for you to take back for executive session.
Tell us the time.
Well, whatever, they'll make sure that it's set and it's gonna go off. We skip around. Here, now, Linda, she takes care of us, she makes sure that we actually get where we're going, she makes sure we have water, she actually feeds us. But this is how you pronounce Miss Ballman Smith.
That's great.
Looks on Fox work for me.
Yes, yes.
That's
Is Stephen Presley here? Okay, well, I do have something for him, wherever it is. Here it is. Because you know, his daddy was a member of that actually only winning national championship team down in Auburn. Because I don't count the fairy tale season. So let's give this to Stephen, because of course he and I were born the exact day, just a few hours apart. He is older. And I can't miss here, Dr. Murphy, you see Stephen. Now, one person that I got to know very well, and this is the fact that she's good friends with Dr. Murphy, and he comes with us to the our Firebirds. Now, and this is no joke. If I can take 1/100th of this person's compassion and faith to the bench, I'm going to be the best judge in the state. When there were times when there was valleys for me, a card would come in the mail. And it just was perfect. It was ideal. It's like she read my mind. Her faith is so strong. And I'm just honored to call her a friend. And I know this is Tara Simmons. And I love you. And I'm there for you. And this is just something for next year because I got a card like a week ago. But she's just incredible. We're lucky to have her here. And thank you. That's her last. No, she's brilliant, y'all. We gotta keep her. Sometimes I worry that they may take her away to Montgomery. So there's multiple things I could give you, Dr. Murphy, but some of them would not be appropriate. You would not want me to give them to you in front of everyone. I will also start that, and I respect actually people that are loyal to their school and big fans. I really do. But just in case. This is a female coach. It's junior, so like you're really not the size. So yeah, No, I know you're not.
This'll be good to sweat in.
Yeah, or you can give it back to me here in a minute. But this is not even generic. This costs like $13. I think you're
That
gonna
lasts
need
a week.
it. I think you're gonna need about like, if you're like me, and I'm proud to call you a friend, and I love you, Dr. Murphy.
Thank
Yeah. So, and look, y'all, what she's wearing.
I did this for Jill.
Right.
As close as I could come.
So, but it's been an incredible opportunity, and I want to thank the city council that appointed me a few years ago. I've lost one of my dear friends, Brian Skelton, a few years ago, and just thinking back on the kindness that was provided to me by him over the years, and I'm going to miss him on the campaign trail. And I told Angel she needs to get ready, but she's got to make up for Brian. Our central office is amazing. Oh, I don't know what I was going to tell you. Not if I wish that Whit was here. Because my goal every executive session is to make Whit's cheeks blush as red as his hair. So Tosney, that's your responsibility. I think you can do it.
I'll warn him.
Now he's live streaming. Hey, okay, and I'm so glad that I'm not gonna be on this live stream thing. It's just 51-year-old women do not want to be. John Anderson, you're not really. But John, I keep telling him to quit taking pictures with my mouth open, and I swear every picture moves something. Maybe I'll talk about it. But thank y'all, and appreciate it. Love you.
Hey,
I'm
before you
here.
go,
Yeah.
stand tight.
Okay, because I get to leave.
Black night for you too.
It's Black Night.
Black night.
Black Night. Oh, I was like,
Resolution.
what? What's that mean?
Resolution from the Hoover Board of Education. Whereas Jill Gaines joined the Hoover Board of Education in 2015, and whereas Jill Gaines holds a deep devotion to community service, you told us that, we know that, public education and justice, and whereas Jill Gaines has worked collaboratively with her fellow board members on important topics facing education in Hoover, and whereas Jill Gaines has a passion for advancing the cause of public education in the city of Hoover, state of Alabama, and nationally, and whereas Jill Gaines served as a powerful voice for the children of Hoover during her year as a school board member for the Hoover City Schools, whereas Jill Gaines has recently been appointed by the Honorable Governor of this great state, Kay Ivey, to the District Court Judge position in the 10th 11th.
It's 10th Judicial
Yeah,
Circuit.
okay. Now, therefore, be resolved that the Hoover Board of Education recognizes the contributions of Ms. Gaines to the children of Hoover, congratulates her on a recent appointment to District Court Judge, and acknowledges her resignation from the school board on the 17th day of October 2017, signed Dr. Kathy Murphy and Earl Hoover, your good friend.
You are. And your son's amazing. I know. That's not I'll be there Friday night. Yeah, well, although I can't talk about this day, you need to vote for me. See y'all. Trying to get out early. I'll watch you live stream.
You go home early.
SRO is incredible. I'm glad that we have them there.
It's maybe a little anticlimactic, but Hoover Board of Education meeting is now called to order. If you will, please join me in a couple of minutes for silent prayer. Thank you. If you will, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The reporting secretary, Ms. Goodwin, please now do a roll call, staff the floor.
Mr. Earl Cooper,
Here.
Craig Kelly, Jana Bobbin, Amy Cosby.
Okay, we do have a quorum. You have before you the agenda for today's board meeting. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The agenda is approved. We've had recognition. Jason, thank you. Any public participation tonight? Don't be afraid, you can still talk if you'd like. Anybody? Okay. Action items. You have before you the minutes of the regular call board meeting on September 11th and the special call board meeting on September 25th. Dr. Murphy?
Board members, I'd request your approval of September 12th and special call meeting September 25.
Okay. Do I have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation to approve these minutes? Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions from the board on the minutes? A motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda will be the personnel actions. Dr. Marcus?
You have before you a personnel report. This includes 6 individuals to be employed, 1 person being transferred, 9 requests for leave of absence, 5 resignations, 1 retirement for Catherine Bedwell, committed 18.5 years of service to us, 3 terminations, 4 supplements, and 3 requests for approval for bus liability purposes. Would request your approval.
Do I have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation for approval of personnel actions? Second?
Second.
Any questions on any personnel actions? Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Personnel report is approved. Next item on the agenda will be the business actions. Dr. Murphy?
I'm requesting your approval on 3 items. First, the monthly financial statement, then our cash disbursements and the payroll for September. Just as a bit of background for our monthly financial statement, you have before you the summary financial statements and the general purpose financial statements for the month that ended August 31. This is based on reconciled statements. We have a favorable budget revenue compared to August of 2016. Your general fund, or our general fund expenditures are 1.9 million more compared to comparable year last year, and that is a result of some technology replacements, of course, capital outlay projects, including both of our high school tracks and our fields, and also some roof replacements, and a bond debt payment has resulted in that. We are still within our budget. In our special revenue fund, the expenditures are positive to $660,000 less being spent, and that's a result of reductions in contracts and also materials and supplies. As it relates to our cash disbursement for August of 2017, the cash disbursement is $3,633,182. Our payroll for September, $7,331,282.87. I request your approval of all 3 of those items.
Did we finally get the gym problem resolved?
Yes, and Tracy's gonna give us an update on that during our capital outlay update.
It's such a mystery. I'm anxious to hear what the real. Okay, good. Thank you. Business actions. Do I have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation to approve the business actions? Second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Business actions are approved. Next item on the agenda would be the termination of the landscape agreement. Dr. Murphy?
Board, we currently have an agreement with Owens Landscape for our lawn care, and we have reached a mutual separation, termination agreement. You have that agreement before you. It has been vetted with our attorney and also the attorney of Owens, and I would request that our lawn maintenance termination agreement be approved.
Do I have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation to approve the termination of the landscape agreement?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Have a motion and a second. Termination of the landscape agreement is approved.
Thank you.
Next item on the Next item on the agenda, which might be the 2018, 2019, and the 2019-22 school calendars. Dr. Murphy.
Board, after a calendar committee has met, has prepared calendars for us. Those calendars have been posted on our website. We have received feedback both from our personnel and from parents and from students. I'd like to recommend that we approve calendar A for 2018-19 and the calendar A specific to 2019-2020 school year. I'm asking your approval of a 2-year calendar with the understanding that this board always has the authority to come back and amend a calendar should it choose or need to do so.
Do we have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation for the approval of 2018, 2019, and 2019, 2020 school calendars?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? I have a couple. Can you just kind of articulate the scope of the committee that looked at this? Because people who have problems with calendars never understand the representation that goes into it. It's extensive.
Yes. We have Dr. Simmons, to the extent you want to step into this, we reached out to all of our schools and asked for representation from all of our schools. We also had AEA, I believe, represented, HPTC. We did send the calendar to AEA, I believe, for their review. Maybe no, okay. But we have, had that calendar out for several weeks, asked for feedback. There is no perfect calendar, we own that. We have our constituents who want a week off for Thanksgiving, others who do not want a week off for Thanksgiving. We have those who want more time at Christmas. We have those who want at least a month off every month. There's just a medley of I wants. And it is impossible to draft a calendar that's going to meet the satisfaction of all. One of the things that we've talked about doing is sending out to our community and to our personnel, what are the things that are most important? Is it most important for us to have a week off for Thanksgiving? Is that more important than a day off each month, a month off each day? A day off each month. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to get some feedback, additional feedback as we continue to move forward with other calendars. What is it that's most important? Because it's such a hodgepodge of interest. And we're going to try to use that information to help us drive as we go forward. We realize our request before you is for 2 years. We realize there could be things that we discover as we get into this academic year that we don't like and that aren't so palatable to us, and I'll point out one that's a possibility as a matter of transparency. I'm a little bit concerned that we only have 2 days for our teachers prior to the start of the academic year, that being students come into the building. And yet that has been vetted with the committee. We've gotten feedback from teachers. Again, some teachers are perfectly okay with that, some are concerned about that. So it is a calendar for 18-19 that we'll learn from. We may come back to you for 19-20 and ask for a tweak.
That's a good one. If you're an elementary school teacher, you can't set your room up for 2 days.
Well, what we do know about elementary teachers is so frequently they've set the room up, 6 weeks a few weeks in advance. I won't say 6, but they take a few weeks off and they're right back in the building and giving us time and energy to get their room set up. So, I'm interested to see how that piece goes for us.
From the State School Board Association perspective, has there been any discussion about when to start school, how early you want to start school, or how early you want to end school, or is there any discussion about year-round school?
The legislators in the past have dictated you can't start sooner than dates. If you'll recall, a few years ago, the legislators did that. That was a decision that was based on the economics of people being on vacation longer in the state and thus generating more revenue. But I do not, that is not currently in place, nor do I anticipate that to be a piece of legislation this upcoming year. I don't think there's any particular positions held by AASB or SSA or the state at this point about, here's your optimal start date and here's your optimal optimal shutdown date. You know, every school's sort of, designs according to the interest of their community.
I've served on the calendar committee a couple of times, and I know one of the challenges that a lot of parents don't realize is, especially going into that first semester, you know, they want to start school a little later, they want the week of Thanksgiving, they want their Christmas break, and what it comes down to is you've got so many instructional days that you've got to get in before the semester is over. And what we found in doing some research was that the only way to get around that would be to have exams after Christmas. And if you think about that, that's not good for teachers, parents, students. That would be very difficult for them. So I think it's a big task to you know, have everyone get what they want. You know, it's impossible. But I think that if you look at the whole picture and see what goes into this, there's a lot of thought that goes in to this. It's not just, we're going to start here, we're going to end here. There's a lot that goes into deciding the full calendar.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you to the committee for everything that they did. And I know that was some time out of their schedules to meet and as well.
Okay, any more questions? Have a motion to second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All opposed? The 2018, 2019, and 2019, 2020 school calendar are approved. Next item on the agenda will be the capital project manager job description.
I am presenting to you this evening, Board, a job description for capital projects manager. In years past in our school district, we had an individual that was known as the Director of School Services. It was the job of that individual to work with the school district as it related to capital outlay projects. Certainly any building construction issues were addressed by that person. That position has gone away with some time, and I have a real interest in us being thoughtful about the load, and I'm just going to point it out very transparently, the load that we've placed on Tracy Hobson. When Tracy moved from the day-to-day operations supervisor position to the coordinator of maintenance, we did not fill his position. So what he in essence did was to continue to be the day-to-day operations supervisor and also took on the responsibilities of being the coordinator of maintenance. And as if that was not a challenge enough, the part of the work that had been done by the Director of School Services, that capital outlay buildings, which position had not been filled, Tracy was also supporting that work. And I believe that we've asked more than a yeoman's amount of work from his department, and in particular from him, being Tracy. And I want to ask you to approve this capital projects manager. You know that we have a lot of things going on right now. We are really being very thoughtful about our capital outlay and what we need to do with roofing. We have our Hoover High School band room under review and soon to start. We have our River Chase property. There is just simply no way for his department to continue to carry the load without some additional support. I'm asking for your approval of the job description, and upon your approval, we would post this position and look to expeditiously fill that position to support the work.
So basically what you're asking is for Tracy not to be able to leap a tall building in a single bound.
He's done quite a nice job of doing his, that's right. This is a great time to say to Tracy publicly, thank you. And he has done all of his work without complaint. I would have been whining and pouting, I'm sure, but it's time for us to support his department additionally.
So I have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation for the approval of the capital project manager's job description. Second? Okay, any questions? Have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The capital project manager's job description is approved. Next item on the agenda would be the Alabama Association of School Board Delegate Selection. Now, that sounds like a big deal, but it's really Let's just say it's a big deal. Dr. Murphy?
Mr. Cooper, it's my understanding that we already have 2 individuals that are gonna represent us, but if you would please announce that, and let's make that official by way of a recommendation in a second, so that it's all official.
The 2 individuals are Craig Kelly
Yes,
and
Deanna.
Don. Yes, they're gonna represent the Hoover School District, as a delegate. And basically, the entire School Board Association meeting of delegates meets to discuss the bylaws of the Alabama Association of School Board. Now, it's a great thing. Everybody else has gone out to eat and you're sitting there, you know, but we have 2 great representatives for the Hoover School District. So do we have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation for the approval of both Craig and Deanna as the Alabama Association of School Board delegate selection for Hoover? Second. I second. So we have a motion and a second. Any questions, Amy? Okay. So no one opposed. So the Alabama Association of School Board delegates, Craig and Deanna, are approved.
Thank you.
Dr. Murphy will now give us some information on new business, the superintendent's report and information reports and whatever else she wants to talk about.
Thank you. I'd like to first call on Brian Phillips, who is going to talk to us a bit about internet compliance.
So I won't waste time here. For us to receive E-rate funding, we have to say publicly every year that we're CEQA compliant. CEQA compliant is the Child Internet Protection Act. We do this every year. It basically outlays a policy, both in our data governance policy, our tech plan, and then the agreement with our students and with our teachers, saying that we'll keep our kids safe while at school. It goes along with FERPA and COPA to protect our kids every day. I have to say that publicly and then ask if there's any questions. Thank you much.
Thank you.
We should work for Equifax.
Brian, thank you so much for that. Board members, you also have this evening 2 proposed board policies, which we're not asking you to approve this evening, but asking for your review. One is the Office of Management and Budget's Uniform Administrative Requirements, or OMB Part 200. And the second is a crowdfunding policy. We currently have both of those areas covered procedurally and how we are approaching our work, but neither of those items are in our policy. AASB policy pipeline, based on the legislative courses of actions back this spring, now necessitates that we have both of those become a part of board policy. We always present to you 1 month and ask for your approval of any board policy the second month. This information has worked through Dr. Simmons' office, through the policy committee, so it's been reviewed by our policy committee. We give it to you for your review for any subsequent questions you might have, with a request in our November meeting that you approve those 2. So as you take a read of that and have questions, we're happy to respond to that. I'd like to ask Ron Dotson if he would come and talk to us a little bit about Lake Wilburn School Zone. As you know, we're building homes fast, and particularly in the southwest part of our city, and that is going to present some opportunities and challenges for us as a school board. And Dr. Dotson, take it away, my friend.
Thank you. As you are well aware, we are still waiting for final approval from the federal court on our rezoning proposal from a while back, and we provided an update to the court this summer on some map tweaks, and I wanted to draw one of those to your attention because we had informed the court in July that we were looking at this area and we're going to be making a recommendation at a later time as to where we would draw this particular boundary. So I wanted to bring it to your attention at this point, and also to the attention of the community, and invite input on this particular question. No decision tonight, not asking for a vote or anything, but just drawing it to your attention. This whole area, where to orient you, this is Bumpus Middle School here, and Trace Crossings here. So north is up in this direction. And this is that undeveloped valley that represents the southwest corner of Hoover. And that's the last big area where a lot of land and a lot of houses are left to be built. There's still pockets all over Hoover, but these are the places where there will be. The area that's located in blue right now, that's highlighted in blue, is superimposed over the rezoning map of this area. So on the rezoning plan, you can kind of see behind the blue here, I'm going to trace with the marker where the boundary in the current rezoning plans was supposed to be between South Shades Crest and Trace Crossings. And what is now that we're later into the plan and we're beginning to find out more about what is happening in this development and the number of homes, we may need to question that and possibly push that border back up to here. And that is where we would actually draw that border is still a matter of, it's a question. And again, that's what I wanted to ask you about. And under the current zoning plan, if a student is here today, everything in this valley is currently zoned to Trace Crossings. And of course, there's not a lot of actual homes in this area yet. The area that's highlighted in blue is primarily going to be where three different developments are going to, one is currently in process, Lake Wilburn, which is the closest to Bumpus Middle School up in this area, and that will grow in various phases. And then you have Black Ridge, which there's two different Black Ridge developments, and those will be populating the rest of this blue area here. There's another area here on the other side of Highway 52. We use the term Trigger Creek to describe that. There's not a particular name to it, but that's a very large area, and that's the latest on the time scale. Nothing is happening in that area right now, and don't expect anything to happen anytime soon. But that area is approved for 1,994 homes at some point in the future. So that's kind of a ticking time bomb over in that corner. This blue area is approved for 1,894 homes. And so we're, in terms of making plans about what is going to come through here, when we made the rezoning plan, we had anticipated that this area, that everything south of this area would be going to the South Shades Crest, K2, Brotts Gap 3-5 combined zone. It was anticipated that there would be a road connecting in this area, and that road is no longer currently part of the development plan. We continue to talk to the city about that and the developers. So fully recognizing that as these homes start to come online, where we draw this line, we're going to have a large number of houses coming on with children, and we know that they're going to be driving up Stadium Trace, they're going to be driving past Trace Crossings Elementary School and through a neighborhood that's going to Trace Crossings to get to their school. And mathematically, that is what is going to need to happen at some point in this valley. And where we draw that line is again, the question that we're going to have before us. But that is going to be a difficult thing. I would like to go into it with as much foreknowledge as possible to the public, and so that as people move into that area, they recognize the logistical challenge that that's going to represent. Any questions on that?
Surely the magnanimous front door fee will solve all these problems.
Yes, sir.
The realtors are informing individuals, I believe, that they will be zoned for the South Shades Crest, Brotts Gap.
That's what I've heard, yes ma'am. And we've begun to get some inquiries. There's already lots that have sold in the Lake Wilburn area, and construction is rolling there in the first phase. So we're starting to get inquiries, and what we're telling them is if you move in tomorrow, you're zoned to Trace Crossings, but under the rezoning plan, when that's approved by the judge, that we would anticipate that's going to be South Shades Crest, but the line has not been officially drawn yet. So asking for, if you want to contact me, if you have questions or input, you're welcome to call or email me and let me know what you're thinking about that. Yes, sir.
Is there an opportunity to maybe have a forum for realtors who want to understand this, give them a consistent message so everybody sings from the same songbook? Because otherwise, I mean, it's just convenient to say, hey, this is what it looks like, and so they don't misrepresent anything unintentionally. So
Wasn't there some type of, something that, Jason, did you?
We had one meeting with realtors, and it's probably a good time for us to do that again. Try to bring them back
I
to the
think
table.
it's really important because there's countless times I've seen where a house on the internet is being shown and it says it's, you know, it can be in Trace Crossings and say it's going to Bluff Park. I mean, it's, you know, can be a problem there, so.
Together, these two areas represent over 3,900 homes. And of course, that will be over an extensive period of time, but it's happening faster than I would have thought it would be moving 6 months prior. So it's just the nature of the economy right now.
This is probably a good time to also kind of jump a little bit and talk just a little bit about internal transfers. I want to acknowledge Wayne Smith and the work he does in student services and how complex this issue is. We currently have 251 students who are on internal transfer, various and sundry reasons, all legit, no value judgment about whether they should or shouldn't be. But internal transfers are presenting issues for us, and I'll give you one specific to the Bluff Park community. I believe, Ron, there are 34 homes about to be built there in the Bluff Park area. In very close proximity to the Bluff Park Elementary School, very much looks like those homes, those children in those homes will go to South Shades Crest.
Shades Mountain.
Excuse me, Shades Mountain. And yet we may have some students who are currently, let's say, at Bluff Park, who are on internal transfer, who may transfer out but get to stay at Bluff Park. So you have people living near Bluff Park who can't come to Bluff Park, people who are in Bluff Park but moved away but get to keep an internal transfer. And there's been a huge, and I'm going to own it, inconsistency in how some of that has happened. And it's created some angst in our community. We have folks who say, hey, why did this child get to stay or this family get to stay and I don't get to stay and I have to move? I really think, board members, there's going to come that point in time where we're going to have some tough conversations about internal transfer. How does it look? When do we do it? What does it look like? How long is grandfathering? So if we have children who are currently on internal transfer and there are 4 little ones who are siblings coming behind them, do they get to exercise the same internal transfer just because older brother and sister had it? You know, how does that look? And how are we, I'm so driven by making sure that we're being thoughtful and fair to all. And right now, no fault of Wayne Smith's, no fault of anyone's. We just have some inconsistencies that's going on that's troubling me, but it's certainly troubling individuals in our community. And we're going to have to own this soon, talk about it like big boys and girls, and find some fair and appropriate solutions.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
So when someone does come and want to, do they do an application process for an internal transfer? And if so, is this something that is renewed each year, like looked at each year, or is once you're in? Like, how does that look?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want me to speak to that, Dr. Martin?
Yes, please, Wayne. Thank you.
First of all, let me correct you publicly. You don't own this. This is something once upon a time, and it's not a fairy tale, and it started back in 1988. No harm or no foul to anyone. Let's assume all of you had kids at Rocky Ridge. They started kindergarten there, they went to first grade, they went to second grade. You moved to the Green Valley zone in the second grade. Well, you loved Rocky Ridge, the principal loved you, there was no capacity issue. You go to the principal, can my kid stay? Sure, we want you to stay. Next year, you know, asked to stay again. Again, no harm, no foul, wasn't hurting anyone. Well, then you had a kindergarten that came along. Well, you were already dropping your now 4th grader off. So can I just go ahead and drop the kindergarten off? And that was occurring in all of our schools. And it has been since only had 5 elementary schools. Well, then that Rocky Ridge finishes the 5th grade. Well, they're ingrained with that group of kids. Can't they just go on to Berry? And then, are we going to make them then go to Hoover High School that's crowded? They're doing us a favor by not going to Hoover High School. So that example is an example of hundreds of scenarios. And we have a group of kids that I call the legacy group, I stole that term from Cindy, that have been on internal transfers since inception. And that school is all they know. And prior to school capacity issues, it didn't rear its head ugly as an issue. And it's very emotionally filled. These parents have been given this right. Again, I inherited this a little bit almost 2 years ago, and that everybody wanted to work with the parents and they got to stay, but it sort of has, with schools that are filling capacity, and it has become an issue because when someone's not granted it, it's not fair because someone in the past was granted it, and I have been very conservative in granting the internal transfers, trying to cut back to looking at a more valid reason as to it just being a school choice type and wanting to stay where you are, because kids that are going to be rezoned aren't going to be given the choice of staying in their school of origin. So it's very complex. And when you look at trying to correct it or fix it, it's sort of broken beyond repair. We're just trying to make it a little bit more better. But in doing so, what do you do with all these groups of kids? Because those decisions were made by adults. Now you've got kids that have always been in these schools, and are we going to yank them from their schools and send them somewhere? So it's a very complex issue to try to resolve. And in looking at it, I think Dr. Murphy just wanted to make you aware of the complexity and the challenges that's involved in trying to address this 1.75% of our school population.
You may have some help.
Well said.
As far as we're talking, you may have some
Yeah,
help.
it's quite possible, and we've presented to the court what we are suggesting or proposing as it relates to internal transfers, but Mr. Cooper is absolutely on point. The judge very well could provide us various and sundry edicts as to how this will go down. But we're very thoughtful about our parents, don't want to create alarm and panic in the community, but I really do believe we're drawing very close to the need to have some good conversations about this.
Well, I want to say this, and you're going to talk a little bit about facility schedule and all that. What I like and what I really appreciate is the fact that you're peeling back the onion and all this. You're trying to make sure everything is as fair as it can be and as consistent as it can be. You can look at facility issues, internal transfers, crowdfunding, just on tonight's agenda. And it's hard conversation, but it's the right thing to do, because if you ever get it set closer than it is, then as many people don't get upset.
So,
Thank you for what you're doing for that.
Ron, would you pick up at this point and talk to us about our academic performance report?
Sure. Before we get too far into the next school year, which we already are, did want to take a look back at 2016-17 school year and let you know how we did. It's been kind of a weird year with lots happening at the state level, which is going to make comparisons for next year a little challenging. But as I shared with you last year, this is unofficial. We get our data in the summertime. The last of it gets to us usually around mid-August. And the state waits until December to release its data. That's a long time to wait to actually use the data to inform practice on this year. So we try to get this done as early as we can and in the hands of our principals before school starts so that they can plan instruction, make adjustments for the next year. Under federal accountability, we'll always have our eyes on that, as well as state accountability restrictions. As I shared with you last year, the No Child Left Behind Act has been replaced by the Every Student Succeeds Act. That is still a developing story, if you will, as the state of Alabama is currently in the process of revising its plan again, and it's currently approved last week by the state board, a new draft that is still undergoing review and discussion. So we're still waiting to see exactly what that's going to turn into. We have been notified that in addition to the state report card, there will be a federal report card being published. We have no idea at this point what that will consist of, more news on that later. Under state accountability, we're equally a little shrugged shoulder to a little extent because of the change in the state superintendency that's gone on over the past few months. The Plan 2020, which was our guiding plan for many, many years, kind of became Alabama Ascending, and now with the interim superintendent at the state level, Alabama Ascending's now been taken off the table. So really don't know what the state direction is right now. That will be developed, I'm sure, once the new state superintendent is selected, and we'll get new metrics going forward. This is the year, if you'll remember, as we discussed last year, there was a law passed by the legislature about the publication of school report cards by the state. Those report cards were published last December, but not in direct keeping with the law. And there's still questions about whether that will be done this year or not. But we do expect those report cards to come. These were the indicators: learning gains, achievement, graduation rate, local indicators. Those were in the formula last year. This was a 2-year phase-in plan, so this year there's also accounting for achievement gap, college and career readiness data, and a new category called program reviews, which I'll tell you more about that later. Along with all of this change is also the end of the ACT Aspire. And so the state school board did not renew the contract with ACT, and the state is currently seeking contracts to create a new test. It's undetermined at this point how long that will take and what that test will be. So we'll be using Scantron, which was in use. We were using it for formative assessment, that is checking student progress during the year. That test will actually be used to develop the state. Get away from me here. That'll actually be used to develop the state accountability publications and everything for this year, possibly next as we go forward. High school will be evaluated in state accountability by the ACT, which is given to juniors in the spring of the year. So the sophomores who took the ACT Aspire last year will be the ones who will be assessed for state accountability this year when they take the ACT as juniors.
Next question.
Yes, sir.
How are you going to deal with how are you going to deal with the situation where the state's now telling us to do Scantron assessments, and yet they're trying to correlate that to ACT, and the Aspire was correlated to ACT, but Scantron's not. So what happens when your ACT scores start falling, but you're trying to do well in your Scantron assessments?
That's a good question, Mr. Cooper. We're doing the best we can with what we have, is all I can say. There's those who are celebrating the end of the Aspire, and there are those who are mourning the end of the Aspire, and I would put myself in the latter camp. I don't think any test is perfect. There's no such animal created right now, but it was, having experienced so many bad tests over the course of my career, it went a long way toward correcting a lot of those ills that were in the past. And so for good or for bad, it is no more, and we have to move on to the next thing. But it makes comparisons extremely difficult, and in terms of formulating goals for this year, we have very few numerical data points that we can compare to. We had done correlations the first year that we gave Scantron as a formative assessment. That was obviously a question our principals had and our teachers had. How close is Scantron? And based on our own kids' data, we had established we found about an 82% correlation between their Scantron scores and their Aspire scores. So that's not research grade correlation, but that's pretty good. And so I don't think we're bad. We're going to be playing ball, but we may not be playing ball in the regulation part.
It's just, I worry about the kids who have to base their college attendance on an ACT score that may be only 80% of what it could have been. It's all rhetorical, I guess, but it's a shame that this whole thing, Alabama Ascension, is Alabama in reverse right now.
I'll sit with you on the end of the pier, watch the sun go down. Reporting on achievement, of course, always this is, the state uses levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 3 and 4 are good. I always make this point that when we're talking about achievement, we're comparing a child who sat in a 7th grade desk in 2016 to a child who sat in a desk in 2017 in the 7th grade. Learning gains and growth are the better data to me, but achievement is required under federal law. In terms of looking at this is the last Aspire data that we'll have. Looking at English language, we tested grades 3 through 8 and grade 10. We had a 0.3% increase from 2016, but from the period when we first started using this test in 2014 to 2017, we've seen a 3.5% increase over that time, which is good. In the mathematics area, we had a 1.6% increase this year, and but that difference over a 3-year period, or actually 4-year period there, is 12%, which is phenomenal. That's almost a little scandalous. And I'm just really, really proud of our teachers, particularly at the elementary and middle level, who have made that happen over the years. Reading level there, we increased a very small amount this year, 0.1%. But if you look at our 2014 to 15, we've improved about 5% there overall. And in science, 6%. And that's with we focused on math and reading first. Science kind of got, science we really didn't start focusing on until last year, and to see that difference is really, really strong. This is how it looks when we look at elementary, middle, and high, kind of how they performed, and we're struggling a little bit with that performance at the high school level. And we were only in the 2nd year of getting the Aspire at the high school level, so teachers were still getting used to that test, still getting used to the content, and we're not able to see that 3 to 4 year effect that we have begun to see in the other grade levels there. Looking at learning gains, of course, this is where we're looking at a kid being compared to a kid. How well did I do compared to other students who made the same score that I did the year before? How well did I do compared to that group of students over the course of the next year? So we like this measurement because it is comparing a kid to a kid. And in this area, we did see falls in here. Last year, we saw dramatic increases in learning gains. These did come down this year primarily because we added grade 10. We did not have the 10th grade represented in this data last year, and so it was only the 2nd year of giving it to 10th graders, so we began to see that growth data in 10th grade, and that kind of pulled the averages down, but we still were achieving well above expectations, and you'll see that in the report card predictions I'll give you in just a minute. So there's the reading and the science. Overall, you can see again the elementary, middle, high distribution, and again, high school is just starting to get used to this test format, and they will not have the opportunity to take that assessment anymore. Graduation rate, again, we report that in 4 and 5 year increments. The 4-year graduation cohort rate, this is based on the class of 2016. We fell by 0.4%. This was, if you'll, we had a lot of hoopla this past year about the inclusion of special education students in graduation data. And after all the buzz and turmoil, we only saw a reduction of 0.4% as a result of that. So proud of our kids for holding up to the standards. 5-year cohort rate had a little bit more of a drop there, but still in line with what we're seeing with the 5-year rate. This is looking back at the class of 2015. Those students who did not graduate with their class, the percentage of those who are able to meet those graduation requirements 1 year later. We get partial credit for those students. We don't get full credit, but we do get partial credit if they graduate within that 5th year. Taking a look at who our non-graduates are, I always think this is important. If you look at the 4-year cohort rate, 3.3% of those non-graduates are still in school. I think that's important. We're keeping them there, keeping them, hopefully, as many of them as possible, finishing their diploma. About 0.8 or close to 1% of those are special ed completers. Those are students who will be with us until they're 21 years old, typically. They're severe needs, and we want to hold on to them to give them as much life skills development as we can. We miss about 1% of our students over the course of 4 years. These students are tracked when they begin 4th grade, regardless of where they begin 4th grade. And sometimes they come to us in the spring and then they don't show up again in the fall, and we don't get any records about where they've gone. Sometimes they move to another state, they may have even moved out of the country. And so our counselors work very, very hard to find them, but sometimes we can't find where they are. If we can't find an official record, then they go into that withdrawn cohort number. About 2.3% of those students are actual dropouts, and of course that's something we would love that number to be 0. But we work very, very hard to keep the kids in school and keep them as productive as possible. College and career readiness. This is students who meet at least one college or career readiness indicator. College readiness, they can get that through ACT scores, APIB exams, or dual enrollment grades in college. Career ready, they take the ACT work keys test for that. They can earn a career credential in their career tech class, or they can enlist in the military before they graduate. The college and career readiness rate for this year is 88.1%. That was a drop of 0.3% from the previous year. The straight career ready number was 78.8%. You look at those students who were only career ready, that's 8.5%. Straight college ready, 79.9%, and the students who were only college ready is 10.2%. So there's an awful lot of overlap there, demonstrating that we're achieving our goal for a majority of the kids of being college and career ready. Looking at the ACT, the graduating class, this is the 12th graders. We get that data back after graduation, and this is based on the last ACT score that they took, not necessarily their highest score, but it is the last reported data that we have for them before they graduate high school. And the only area where we saw a decrease there is in math, and that's an area where we've seen a challenge there, particularly in high school the last couple of years, and that's going to be one of our major priorities looking forward this next year. We look at this class of 2017, we look back over where the different points we measured their college readiness from the 8th grade forward, and we see this drop off in math and reading especially that is challenging to us. That's something we want to address. State report card prediction. I have speculation alert up there just because I have no idea what the state school board is going to do. I know what the law says we're supposed to do, so I base my calculations on that. And whether the state school board does that or not, it's up to them. But if I do like for us to kind of have an idea of where, I always wanted to know my grade before the report card came home, so I know whether to hide it from the parents or not. And but anyway, this is the kind of the rules that go into it. Last year was not a full weighted because not all the categories were in there. With all the categories, these weights got to tell you, this is like the syllabus at the beginning of the course where the teacher tells you how much everything's worth. So all that adds up to 100%. In terms of achievement, and so we get extra weight if the kids get in that level 4 area or if they grow more than a year. So the achievement area, our overall grade for all the grade levels I predict that's going to be at an 82%. For math, that's going to be around 86, and for reading, that's going to be around 76. Both of those are increases over the previous year. For learning gains, we were just about at 100% last year, and we're at 100% this year there. So we're doing great in that particular area. Graduation rate, again, small changes there. Local indicator, no change. We got 100% last year. We got 100% this year as well. Yes, sir.
On the learning gains back there, when you showed learning gains earlier, including the 10th grade, there was pretty significant declines, and yet here we're showing 100%.
The reason is because back here on the weighting factors, you look up here for the students that count in the high growth category, you're getting a weight of 1.5 for those students. So when you calculate, I was giving you a straight percentage, and what's going to be on the report card is a weighted calculation. That's going to give you a benefit for the kids. And not only this, the average growth means they grew a year. High growth means they grew more than a year in that year time. So you're kind of getting extra credit for pushing the kids farther.
Grade for 10.
Yes. Yes, and the same thing with achievement. You don't get a 1.5 bump, but you get a 1.25 bump.
if you have kids in that level 4 of achievement. And we get a half point if they're at level 2, which represents that they're improving, they just haven't met proficiency standards for that year. That's why the numbers will look different. Achievement gap, this is a new category. We didn't find out how this was calculated until about 3 weeks ago. So we had no idea how they were going to pull this together. But what they're looking at is the percent of students in the lowest 25%. And that's not, that's the lowest 25% for the district and the lowest 25% for each school. So it's not the lowest 25% compared to the country. It's the lowest 25% of the students in whatever school or district you're talking about. And what they're looking at is for those students, that lowest 25%, regardless of who they are, what subgroup they might belong to, those are your struggling students. And those are the ones you're looking to see what percentage of those students have a learning gains of 1 year or more, demonstrating that you're, regardless of where they are, you're pushing them on, you're getting them on to the next level. And so what this is saying is that overall, about 2 out of 3 of our kids in that lowest 25% group grew 1 year or more. There's a lot of kids with significant challenges in that lowest 25% group. And so it's a lot of work that goes into getting that kind of a gain out of those kids. That's what we're aiming for, is to make sure that those kids aren't falling farther behind, that they're growing, they're moving ahead. So but now that we know that, now that we have a benchmark for that, that's something that I want to see much improved over time. College and career readiness, that number I already gave you. Program review, this is a brand new category. This is going to involve parent engagement in KA and student mentoring in 9-12. This particular year, you got 100% credit for submitting a plan. So next year that'll be a grade based on how well each school executed its plan to meet this requirement.
So the achievement gap of 66%, is that a D?
Depends on what scale the State Department puts to this, but it could be. That I'm interested to see also how that number looks across the state. I have no comparison data at this point to be able to say whether that's good or bad. So until all data is public, we won't know that. There's a 5% bonus built into this system if your average daily attendance is 90% or more. All of our schools had average daily attendance of over 90%. And the average across the district was 95.9, so we will get that, and all schools will get that 5% bonus. Final grade predicted is 90.4. If we were given an individual grade to elementary schools, that would be 89.7. Middle schools, 93.5. High schools, 84.8. So again, that's predictions for how that will go. And looking at what we need to work on this year, we know that math and reading at the high school level is something that we need to continue to work on. We know that Algebra 1 is the point where we're beginning to lose students in this process, so we put a lot of effort into new curriculum for that level and to ensure that the teachers are trained in the delivery of that new curriculum. For English, Dr. Adams has been working with those professional learning communities at both high schools to rewrite curriculum guides at the English level to focus more on the reading standards and to begin to do common assessments across the school with looking at those getting reading assignments and student written responses to that. Again, like I shared, it's going to be very difficult to come up with quantitative goals for this year because we won't have tests to compare to. When we gave Scantron at the beginning of the year, at the middle of the year, and then we gave Aspire at the end of the year. So we don't have end of year Scantron data to compare last year to this year. What we do have is mid-year growth target data. And so one of our goals we put into our plan for this year is to look at that growth target in February to see where our kids stand, and we want to see a 2% increase in all the schools in students meeting those individual growth targets. If the individual students are meeting their growth targets, not only will growth increase, but also achievement should increase as well. Also looking at that achievement gap itself, trying to put some attention toward that. We're looking at the students who score in that below average category
On the Scantron assessment at the very beginning of the year, that's gonna be your lowest 25% identified, and looking for at least a 3% decrease in that number by the end of the year, which indicates that you're moving kids out of that category and into a higher performing level. So that's my report. Any questions?
Thank you for doing, that's a lot of information.
Welcome.
And usually Ron's predictions are spot on. So we'll see how he does in a few weeks when we get those results. That's right. Lots of work.
So when you distill all this data down, since it's not comparing to anybody else in the over mountain, city, state, nationally, is it good, or what is the outcomes, what are you seeing?
I feel good about the areas that we've worked on. The effort that we've had in math and reading, particularly elementary and middle, is paying off big. And I think that with time, we'll begin to see that with high school as well.
What's interesting to me is that, you show that in the end, the actual grades for middle school is 93% or something like that, and the learning gains. And yet, when we talk about math and reading learning gains and all the other assessments, to include the 10th grade and the drop, something bad must be going on for 10th graders. They're not getting something. Maybe it's algebra 1, maybe I don't know, but it must have been pretty significant to drop things like they did.
I think it's bad that that we did not test ninth graders with that, because I think the kids lose something in that year, and then it's like, wait a minute, this is the test I took in 8th grade. So there's a little bit of that going on. And honestly, it really does take a couple of years for the teachers to get used to the assessment, to the feedback that they get, to see how that can help their practice, can help them help kids. And I really feel like if we had one more year of that as something that we were working on with at the high school level, that feedback would have been more helpful to them and less of a, oh no, kind of a thing. But that's what we went through the first 2 years when this was done in grades 3-8. And I think it has paid off enormously in terms of what the kids eventually were able to do.
Thank you, Ron. I would like to share with you facility use fee schedule and personnel fee schedule. Board members, we've spent a lot of very deliberate time with this process. Michelle McKay and also Tina Hancock and many others who've worked on this. We've had meetings to seek input from others as it relates to this facility use fee. We've brought those individuals being impacted by this to the table, invited them to the table. Based on that feedback, we have actually gone through 2 iterations of this process because we were thoughtful about what was being shared with us. The goal of spending the amount of time and energy that we have with this facility use fee schedule is that need, that interest we have to be fair first to the school district and making sure we're not encumbering ourselves with costs that should rightfully be passed to the user of our facility, but also very thoughtful about being fair to the people who are wanting to use our facility. So it was a dual purpose. Obviously, selfishly, our role is to make sure our school district is not left covering costs that should be passed on. I am not asking for approval. This is not an actionable item, but I do want to share with you that we've been very thoughtful. We've been very thorough. I think we've been very willing to change our position as it relates to some of these because we have listened to our folks, our community, and those who are using our facilities. So this is about to be our procedure for how we go about moving forward with facility use fee schedule, and I'm very comfortable that we've been fair and thoughtful and thorough. And it's a good time for me to acknowledge Michelle and Tina and others who've spent a great deal of time helping us come to this point. So this is for your information. We will be posting this up immediately as we start to move forward with the use of this fee schedule. If I could have, I completely skipped Tracy last board meeting. I told him to be prepared to give us an update on our capital outlay, and then we dismissed the meeting and all went home. But Tracy, we have lots of things going on, from roofing to track and fields, also Hoover High School, our band piece, and River Chase Middle School. Would you talk to us about those parts?
I'll just kind of briefly touch on what we got our hands on. Our partial re-roofings at Simmons and Rocky Ridge are complete. Everything went well. Spain Park High School football and track. Football field is complete, track is complete, all but striping. We still need to stripe the track at Spain Park. Hoover High School field is complete, looks good. The track, Sunbelt has mobilized to the track today. So in about 8 days, we should have the asphalt complete.
Would you explain what happened with the water?
Yeah, Hoover High School kind of sits in a swamp, Mr. Hoover, you know. The water table.
Cajun thing.
Must be that Cajun thing. So, as we were testing, we were proof rolling and testing at every phase. So when we got this track milled, it failed the test. So we got to the sub base and it failed. We got to the earth itself and it failed. So we had to just split open the earth, went through a long drying, recompaction, and we're there finally. So we'll be able to put the sub base down, I hope this week, and asphalt. We'll be solid there. Hoover High School band room, we've got a bid October the 26th. That's not this Thursday, but next Thursday, with a 10-month build out. So we're still looking at getting into that band room the 1st of August. Spain Park gym floor. That's been a challenge. We did 10 borings. We removed the concrete, did 10 borings, found no bad subsoil, no plastic clays, no problems that we could run into. So the final determination between 2 engineers and 2 architects was between the drought of 16 and the wet weather of 17, something really deep in the ground heaved. The good part is we don't think anything else would heave. If it would be showing now. But they wrote a prescription, I call it, for we doubled the steel, we doubled the thickness of the concrete and the strength of the concrete. And it has been poured back, the floor is now down, and the urethane is being applied this week, I think, Mr. G's. So we're in the final stages of that project, I think. Over the summer, we replaced 11 HVAC units in-house throughout the district. We did a lot of painting. I think we're finally got a district-wide schedule for our painting that we'll do every summer now. That's something we didn't have in the past. That was kind of whoever screamed the loudest got the most paint. So, I think we're on a better schedule now. We did take on a lighting project at Green Valley. We put LED lights in all the halls and all of the bathrooms. Our goal by the end of next summer is to have all LED lights in the classrooms. So by the end of next summer, LED lights will be in the whole facility. That'll be our first facility totally LED lit. So that'll be a great thing. We've had contractors come out and give us performance package prices, and so we dissected some of those proposals, and it looked like that we were going to be able to do it in-house. So we'll be able to totally light Green Valley with LED lights for a little under $20,000.
What's it?
Cool.
Tracy, if I could add, I just want to, from my perspective, it was transformative at Green Valley. It really made a difference as you walked through that school. Very, very proud of what that did. Thank you.
I asked the question because we did our kitchen with LED lighting and learned very quickly that temperature is everything in LED lighting. You know, if you want something like an incandescent bulb, it's got to be 2,400 degrees. If you want something bright like the sun, it's 3,000 degrees. And we actually had to change back to a 2,400 or 2,700 because the glare. So I just mentioned that.
Yes.
It's interesting. All LEDs are not created equal.
That's great. We did an awning, carpool awning at Bluff Park Elementary for carpool. I think Dr. Lamar and the whole community was very proud of that aspect. We're currently doing, with the help of Brian Phillips, also replacing cameras and DVRs. We're upgrading all of our security systems. Can't do it all at one time, but we're chipping away at that. Currently working on the IT offices for Brian at Blue Ridge Gym. We got our final inspection on our electrical and framing today, so we'll be hanging drywall by the end of the week. I hope to have you guys in there by the end of this month.
You've been more than patient, haven't you?
Thank you for your patience. We've got a lot on our plate. Last thing I have is there's been a lot of buzz about lead in our water and drinking water and testing. We have been proactive and had all of our students tested for lead and all came back negative. That's all I have.
And we'll be closing tomorrow on the River Chase property.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board members? Thank you.
And thank you for the added support.
Any questions, comments? Anybody from the report? Good.
Yes.
Okay, no other information reports. The next date for the board meeting will be November 14th at 5:30 here at the central office. We do stand adjourned.